All right. Welcome, everybody, to our podcast where I'm not the book expert, but she is. I'm your host, Maggie.
And I am your co-host, Rachel.
We're technically both co-hosts. I just want to clear that
Yeah.
up. This is an equal partnership here. I just drew the short straw and I had to start.
Drew
So,
the short straw being she volunteered to do it.
okay, you don't have to expose me like that. Sheesh.
Yes, I do. It's my job.
um, so yeah, this is our little introduction to our podcast where we're going to talk about books, probably more than we should, but that's okay
We're both experts
because we're book experts. I,
sometimes.
I couldn't really come up with a good reason why it was okay, but I also can't come up with a good reason why it's not okay. So like I think we're fine. I think we're in the clear.
Agreed.
So yeah, we just thought before we get started with our first couple of episodes, we wanted to talk a little bit about our podcast and about ourselves because what's the point of having a podcast if you can't talk about yourself a little bit? So yeah, Rachel, do you want to tell us a little bit about you or do you want to talk about us or whatever?
Why don't I share kind of how we met, then I'll talk about me and then you can talk about you?
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. So Maggie and I met in college. We were in the same English degree program together. However, I am 2 years older than Maggie. I graduated 2 years before she did, but we were in the same intro to English classes because I changed my major the same time she was coming in. So that is how we ended up meeting each other. We were in the same intro to English classes. From then to now, we have both graduated. I am now an English teacher back in my hometown area. And Maggie, what do you do?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2020, which like haha, so cool, right? We're not going to talk about that. But I graduated in 2020 and I actually a couple months later got a job back at the university we graduated from where I am now like an administrative assistant, writing emails, making phone calls, typing documents, all kinds of good stuff. I actually really do enjoy my job there though, and it gives me lots of time to read over my lunch breaks, which I appreciate.
And my job is literally to read and talk to students.
Yeah, so we both basically ended up in perfect places, at least for
Indeed.
right now.
Indeed.
So we decided to start this little podcast show thing, mostly because we just like to talk about books and we think, hey, maybe other people would like to hear us talk about books. And I also do think we have some important maybe a strong word there, some insightful things to say about the books that we read. And also like when you're an English major, for those of you who may not know, when you're an English major, you have to write a lot of papers about books, but they're usually like old books that like people think are important. And we would like to basically take all of the things that we managed to learn when we were students and apply them to the books that we read now.
That we actually enjoy.
That we actually enjoy. Not that I didn't enjoy all of the books that I read when I was in college.
I did not enjoy all of them.
I did not enjoy all of them. I did enjoy some of them.
Yes.
But I think, I don't know if we had any big lofty goals here, but I guess if we did, I would say we just want to contribute to having a sort of insightful conversation about the books that we read, whether they're considered quote unquote important books or not.
Mm-hmm. And as somebody who thought about going into librarianship, I would also say that we like to have an archive of our conversations.
Mm-hmm. I like that too. But we were trying to think of a way to sort of structure this in a way that would be interesting other than us just saying, hey, what are you reading? Let's talk about it. And we've decided to, because we both have very similar tastes in books, but we tend to go in slightly different directions sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So we've decided to take turns being the book expert in quotation marks, hence the name of the podcast. I'll give an example. So I grew up reading the Percy Jackson books and Rachel didn't read them until recently. So we will talk about the Percy Jackson books where I, Maggie, am the quote unquote book expert. Not that I have a degree in like classical mythology or anything like that, but like, I feel like I'm a little bit more of an expert here. Whereas Rachel is our newbie, and we'll just have a conversation about that. So basically, this podcast is just an excuse for us to force each other to read our favorite books because what are friends
in
for?
a loving way. It's
Right.
always in a loving way.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
like
the
that.
only form of bullying that we believe is a good form of bullying.
A positive force in the world, if you
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And something that we do highlight in our first episode, because we just finished recording it, that I want to reiterate here, is that all forms of reading are valid forms of reading.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Be it physical, audio, ebook, fan fiction, graphic novels, those are all forms of reading. And we really want to highlight that any reading is still reading.
Mm-hmm. Basically, if it has words, or even if it doesn't have words, in the case of like some picture books or graphic novels, it's a book, and we're going to talk about it.
And it is still a valid form of reading.
Mm-hmm.
So we are super excited to have you on our journey as we dive deeper into different books. And we hope that you enjoy our adventures.
Yes, and in the meantime, as we get ready, so our first episode, we're going to talk about our 2021 Goodreads recap, which is basically like, what was the longest book we read? What was the shortest book we read? What was the most popular book that we read? Things like that. And we have some discussion about that. But in the meantime, if you want to find us, you can find us on Twitter at Book Expert Pod, or on Instagram with the same username. Mm-hmm. You can also email us if you're feeling a little bit old school. You can email us at notthebookexpert@gmail.com. I think I'm getting all of those right. If I'm not, I'll just put a little note somewhere later. But seriously, if you want to keep up with us, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.